Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters, back with an uncomfortable conversation. Sort of uncomfortable as today I will be reviewing the Netflix Untold series first episode, or one of the episodes, that discussed the malice at the palace. Y'all may remember the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers had a basketball game that ended prematurely after a brawl happened. Fans got involved where they shouldn't have, which led the players to go into survival mode of the opposing team and defend themselves. Here's a quick clip from that.
Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved. Steven Jackson's in the fans.
So, watching this, I was happy that everyone who has had an opinion that may not have been paying attention to the documentaries or the interviews, such as from Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Steven Jackson, or even Reggie Miller. Everybody who hasn't been paying attention but has constantly been running their mouth finally got to see, if they watch this, they finally got to see their side of the story. Because everything that they've been saying in the past year or two really was condensed here. You know, I've heard them always discuss that Reggie Miller said that, you know, Ron Artest, they was getting ready to mace him. The police officers, which the officer, clearly he was lying, said he wasn't going to mace Artest, but he had his mace out. In the heat of the moment, that's what he was going to do. I don't want to hear it. So I was happy that people got to hear Reggie's perspective, where he said he was going to prevent that, told him, go get the fans. Steven Jackson has constantly said that they didn't do anything to protect the players. And when you watch this, you saw that. You saw that there was nobody around that could say, all right, let's get the crowd under control. You really saw when that cup in slow motion comes toward Artest, and he says, uh-oh, that's it. You know, you heard him say he was doing his best to get out of the way. He was doing his best. So I was happy that people got to hear this. I really wish they would have focused on some of the positive stuff that they're doing afterwards. I know Steven Jackson has said that he didn't really care for the fact that Artest and the gentleman who threw the cup are now good friends. And you understand from Jackson's point of view, maybe he just didn't want to be public, or maybe he don't like them being friends at all. I know he talks about forgiveness, so he probably feels differently now. But maybe it didn't have to be such a big public thing. I mean, at the end of the day, they all lost money. And like you learned on there, Jermaine O'Neal lost big time. You know, you think about, people don't understand. If you wasn't around during that time, Jermaine O'Neal was literally one of the best players in the world. In the Eastern Conference, he was an all-star starter. Now, at the power forward position around 2004, 2005, 2006, just remember these names: Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and then you got Jermaine O'Neal. He was right up there along with them. You know, Marcus Camby was more so a center, and he was in Denver. Kenyon Martin was another big name, but you can make the argument that Jermaine O'Neal was better than him. You even hear, you see how that Pacers team, you know, the rivalry started the year before. Now, at that time, I was rooting for the Pistons because I had actually called the Pistons and the Lakers the year it was the Nets and the Lakers in the finals. And I remember when the Pistons won, I was happy. Even then, I was like, man, I wish I didn't root for them. But unfortunately, you know, and they was beating them. They was beating them real bad. I love the fact that you hear the sound when Jamal Tinsley says, all right, Ron, you get your foul back. That was unnecessary. It was very unnecessary. But I was glad they saw that. But, you know, I was sitting there, and I'm like, what's with all these cameras? You have all these cameras, but you're not showing that these guys have did what they did. You didn't have these cameras years ago. You mean to tell me that they didn't have all these cameras years ago? That's what I was sitting there baffled by. I'm like, okay, when y'all was doing your investigations, I understand the world's different now, but y'all doing all your investigations, right? Why wasn't you ahead of this? Why wasn't you ahead of your time and really listening to the players? That was ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. But I'm happy that we did get to see this side of things. I don't think there's anything else left to be said. We know where Jackson, Artest, O'Neal, where their perspective was. And I mentioned those names, and even Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was suspended, but he was suspended more so for throwing things at Artest. I I don't agree with the year suspension though, because at the end of the day, he was defending himself. It's like if you go to school and you get into a fight. If you're defending yourself, you ain't gonna get expelled most of the time. You'll get suspended, but if you're the starter, that's one thing. But if you defending yourself, you have a right, a God-given right to defend yourself, to protect yourself at all costs. And I know some people don't agree, but you have to do what you have to do. You have to do what you have to do. You think about that Indiana Pacers team and what could have been. They said it, a championship. They felt like they had the team, the tools to get it done. They were rolling. I mean, granted, it was early in the season, but they was up by almost 15 points when they called the game. So, and people thought it was disrespectful. But you know, the biggest thing I had an issue with, and I don't see people talking about it that much, one of the biggest issues I had when I was watching that was the fact you had people pouring liquid, whether it was soda, pee, beer, or liquor, on the players, just dumping it as if they were a waste, as if they wasn't human beings. And you expect the players not to react. They you trying to haul them to the locker room. Now clearly these are fans that wasn't bold enough to storm the court, that wasn't on that side of things, that didn't get hit. But you have fans who decided it was okay for them to pour stuff on people. And I wondered, did they get in trouble? Were they banned from the Palace? Because that was just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. You know, everybody felt it was, you know, everybody wanted to beat up on the players, you know, and they implemented a new dress code and stuff. And it was as if they were saying, you know, you had a lot of journalists talking about, oh, yeah, these $1 million this, these $1 million that. Come on, man. I'm going to take you to a quick clip. I had the honor and pleasure of speaking with Daniel Artest, the brother of Ron, earlier in season 3. And we talked about his career. For those who do not know, he is a podcaster as well. Shout out to the Daniel Artest podcast. I want y'all to take a listen to what he had to say about this.
You know, that was the right human reaction. People thought that Ron was still the same. And I'm like, Ron changed his attitude that whole time. You know, he was more calm and stuff. He wasn't on edge a lot like he was back then. Because mind you, I was there. I was training with him the whole goddamn summer because I still was playing college basketball myself. So for people to just have this misconception of my brother, that bothers me. You know what I mean? They say he's crazy and this, that, and the other. Like, that really bothers me because that's not even true. You know, like when people try to, you know, make fun of his name and stuff, like I always had an issue with it. That's why I didn't like people like John Barry when he, you know, called them meta weird piece and stuff. I'm like, yo, first of all, y'all being disrespectful with this whole calling my brother crazy thing. You know what I mean? Like the art, you know, crazy Artest, this, that, and the other. You know, you disrespecting my mother, you disrespecting my father, everybody that has the last name Artest. And we're a good family. You know what I'm saying? We come from Queensbridge projects or whatever. We grew up in the welfare system and stuff like that. And, you know, Ron made something out of himself. And then like, it's always like, I'm going to be real with you, man. And I don't like when there's white people on the social media or on TV and they characterize this man as, you know, they say crazy and stuff like that. Like, who are you to call somebody crazy because somebody doesn't conform to the stuff that you want, that you think is right. Even with the situation with Kyrie Irving right now, he's going through that. You know what I'm saying? And it really frustrates me that when something goes wrong, oh, he's mentally unstable. Maybe in your suburban life, that's what it is with your little Tommy and Johnny and them like that. But with us, it's different. Nobody's crazy, just how things are. I say it right now, you throw something in my face, I'm kicking your ass. Simple as that. And that's how everybody reaction should be. You don't throw nothing in nobody's face. It was beer that hit Ron or whatever. Somebody could have peed in a cup of urine, or we could have been urine in a cup or something like that. But yet he got to maintain some type of, maturity issue or whatever because he's a millionaire. Come on, man. Yes, come on, please. What happened when Will Smith, when the guy tried to kiss Will Smith on the mouth on that video that's on YouTube, he smacked the shit out of him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the proper reaction, so yeah, I'm sorry.
So nobody never thought to blame the coach for keeping the starters in the whole game. It was a blow.
And I'm glad. See, I've never talked about this, so this is all my opinion. This is all how I feel. I don't talk about this. Is my first time talking about this. Yeah. I feel like this. Sometimes I blame Larry Bird. Let me tell you why. I blame Larry Bird because of this. He fired Isaiah Thomas. If Isaiah Thomas was still the coach of that team, that brawl would have never happened. Isaiah Thomas had that team, had that Pacers team. It was locked. But no disrespect to Rick Carlisle, really good coach. But he didn't have the same type of, feeling with that team.
He was a new coach too at the time.
He's a great coach. He's a great coach.
But like newer as coaching, like he was still green in that space, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And Isaiah Thomas, he know how to talk to certain players. You know what I'm saying? He know how to get to the players, because he was a player himself. Rick Carlisle was a player himself too as well. But that race matters, man. You know what I'm saying? When you have a black coach that can relate to players like that, because Ron wasn't really having no outbursts with Isaiah Thomas like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Steven Jackson wasn't. It was all good. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It was like a little family atmosphere thing like that. I always felt like if Isaiah Thomas was still on that team, not only the bro would have never happened, they would have won the championship. And that's just my honest opinion. When I say that, I don't speak for my brother. This is Daniel speaking for Daniel on that. Yeah. So whatever backlash I get from this podcast, I'm willing to take it.
And one of the things that really made me uncomfortable as well, as Daniel mentioned, was when you think about some of these journalists. These people, sure, did they work hard in their profession? Absolutely, in most cases. But what made me uncomfortable was how in the world who are you to say, oh yeah, well, these thugs and this thuggish behavior. That's one of the things that's always annoyed me about sports, especially in the game of basketball, a league that's predominantly black. When you have people who can't even play the sport, always having an opinion, always talking down about the players, always degrading the players, calling them $1 million thugs or calling them, spoiled brats. And that's always been an issue I've had and will continue to have, because it's not right. It's not cool. It's not fair. Who are you to say that about another human being? Like, seriously. And, it really irritated me when I was looking at this and all the past, and even back then in 2004 and 2005, it bothered me. Like, you having people that's speaking bad about players, seasoned journalists, that they would not say these things in Artest, in Steven Jackson's face. They wouldn't say none of those things. It was just the same thing when Sean Taylor died. They painted the picture, said, oh, his previous lifestyle caught up with him, and come to find out it was somebody he employed, a child that he employed, that decided to rob him, ended up killing him. You have all these people, and that's where I mentioned a lot of times about these sports debate shows where it's the thing of the art of tearing down one man to build up another. Me and my buddy Cassius Fleming talked about this on his episode. It doesn't always have to be that way. I know, and I've gotten into it with, debates where I couldn't appreciate one player because I was too busy defending another. I couldn't appreciate T-Mac in his heyday because I was a Kobe guy. And I said I wouldn't let that happen with Patrick Mahomes. So I sit back and just watching this, I want everybody to check it out. I thought it was a solid documentary. You know, finally the world got to see what I known. I've been in the rabbit hole for a couple of days where I've watched previous interviews with Steven Jackson, with Ron Artest, with Jermaine O'Neal, with Reggie Miller, hearing them discuss this, you know. So I think that it was really cool that people got the chance to see this. People got a chance to hear their side of the story. Hear some of the same stories I've been hearing for years, but here, you know, will it change people's thoughts? I don't know. You know, that's the one thing. I know they said it's going to change the way people think. They're going to see things, and then they're going to have a clear-cut way to decide. I don't know if it was that many different camera angles. You know, I saw the frame by frame, and maybe my mind is jaded because I've heard the story so much that I could kind of visualize it. But there was nothing there that made me say, "Ooh, ah." I mean, we all knew it was a fan that threw a cup, you know. So I think if you would have seen somebody, I do think, you know, hearing that you did have people coming from the upper section coming to fill in the arena as the season ticket holders left. I think maybe that was a big deal, you know, having the other guy who, you know, hearing the head of security say that she had the guy who got punched in the face in there and say, man, maybe we can sue, maybe we can get some money out of this. I think maybe that's one of the things. But overall, I still think it was good. Definitely something to check out. It's one of those things, about a little over an hour long. I think, you know, I could have gone, you know, it could have gone a little bit longer. But, you know, I definitely say check it out. I thought it was pretty solid. But folks, thank you for tuning into this episode of Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast at B Waters Productions. Make sure that you right now on Instagram, I can't follow back and I can't post pictures. I mean, can't post with images or captions. So y'all forgive me for that. But make sure that you you know, show love, share. Let me know what you think though, whether it's on YouTube or on social media at Brian H. Waters. Let me know, how do you feel about the show? Let me know, how did you feel about the documentary? What's your thoughts on Malice at the Palace? You know, I still remember to this day, my friend, shout out to my friend Megan, calling me that Friday night. I was leaving rehearsal. She called me, said, "Are you watching basketball?" I said, "No." They are fighting, and getting home and seeing everything. So, it's one of those things we still have, you know, we're still talking about from now, and we'll be talking about forever. So, but I just wanted to do a quick review as I saw it, and, you know, I just want people to understand, you know, at the end of the day, players are human beings, and, you know, we need to respect them and respect their space. Till the next time, folks, I'm Brian H. Waters. So long, everybody.